children. It's like children in a schoolyard where you have to say it, but it's one of the reasons the country is becoming ungovernable is because the people are too dumb to be governed. They're too dumb to like truly have a government and hold that government accountable. It's children. You have infants running around. You have toddlers. You have to put gates up around the house. You have to say no candy for breakfast. Like it's just a problem. And, and that's why people say, oh, you're cynical and you're black-pilled or whatever. I'm just like, no, I go out and I meet people and I talk to them and I'm filled with fear after I meet people. I'm filled with fear. I don't understand people that aren't. I cocoon in a hotel bed at night after I've met people. And I go, these are the people that are supposed to check the Epsteins of the world. God help us. God help us. I mean, you have no hope. There's no hope.
Right, because like take Epstein again. Why
this
for
is a holiday episode?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
I don't know what you want to hear, but
because like take Epstein as an example again. The guy was convicted of pedophilia in 2007.
Yeah,
he was sentenced for less months in jail than his butler, who supposedly obstructed justice by not giving evidence about him. And then for 12 years, everything was fine. Like everyone's flying around in his plane.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's in the news again. Like, this is a bad guy. We kind of knew 12 years ago he was a bad guy.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but again, it's like and now it's all political. Like, and I feed into it too because I tweet the Clintons are scumbags, but like everybody's like, yeah, the Clintons. I'm like, they're two people in a sea of nefarious characters. Now everyone's using it's just a political battering ram and it's a meme and it's a joke. And I mean, it's like, and I get it. I make jokes about it too. There's just this idea that we've all woken up to the idea that there's really no way out. And I don't mean no way out in the sense that you can't have a good life and you can't do productive, meaningful things, but no way out in the sense that like, it just, in general, with these 350 million people in this country, we've got AI coming, we've got automation coming, we've got climate problems coming, we've got a tremendous wealth disparity. We have a tremendously powerful corporate state, which involves the government, the military, major corporation. We're extended as an empire all over the world. We have a political class that's, been blackmailed or whatever. They're completely ineffective. The government's somewhat broken. Even the horrible Trump's policies are pretty much the same as everybody else's. It's this stagnation that's been happening for a while. And then people are just, you call all of that out and you go like, the problems are so deep and it requires, so much to get out of any one of them. You just have to enjoy where we are right now and laugh and enjoy it and do what you can and be good to the people that you can and take on the causes that are meaningful to you. But the ship is heading towards the iceberg. We all see the iceberg and we can't really do anything. I think that's really, the knowledge of that is kind of freeing to some people, or some people it's like really bleak, which is why we have the opioid crisis and everything else. It's like people just can't handle the idea that like, there's the iceberg. We see the iceberg and we're making jokes about it. We're memeing the iceberg. So instead of being like, help, no, move, we're like, LOL, iceberg. Here's me on the way to the iceberg, heading to the berg, gonna drown soon in the lifeboats. Like, who's gonna be first in the lifeboat? Hope it's a trans person of color. Like, it's done. It's been a good run. It's been fun.
But that's kind of,
it's been fun.
Depending on your perspective.
For me, it's been worse for other people. That sucks. I don't want that.
But I think it's been fun is a perspective. Like you said earlier, You have to ask why. And I think that's your special technique that you've honed, which is you look at any situation and you're able to kind of ask why and turn it upside down and then connect the dots backwards. So you're able to, like, sometimes I'll see you say something, let's say on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm like, man, that doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
And then you'll connect the dots backwards and I'll be thinking to myself, he just took that and now it makes complete sense. Like, there's a logic to it. I still might not agree, but it makes logic.
The greatest way to not have a career is to make sense. By the way, and this is my advice to anyone right now. If the greatest way in this climate to not have a career and to be irrelevant is to make rational sense. Look at the world we're living in, dummy. And if you're still trying to be rational now, you're crazy. You're the crazy one.
Yeah.
Trump is the president. You know, the girl who told her mother, can I curse or no?
Yeah, of course.
The girl who told her mother to go fuck herself on Dr. Phil and threaten the audience is one of our leading recording artists. I mean, what does this look like in 50 years? Good luck, folks. Rational. It's like, I have friends like that like, you know, I know guys that write these very studious, you know, cerebral pieces, and they're deeply contemplative people, and I respect them, but I'm like, God, I don't know what you know, it's like going into a Chuck E. Cheese with broccoli and going, no, the pizza's not good for you, kids. And everybody's like, there's a giant rat running around. We don't care about the nutrition. There's a rat running around. There's a ball pit. We're going in ball. And you're like, you should have broccoli. It's good. It fights cancer. And they're like, there is no cancer. And everything's cancer. There's a giant rat. There's a ball pit. So I think that's, you know, to be funny, I reserve the right to not make sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're bringing out things that have plausibility. So like, you know, you'll take these situations, you know, Epstein, and you'll just wonder, what are all the possibilities? I bring up Epstein as an example just because that's like such a it's almost a cliche of a conspiracy. Like it's almost so conspiracy like they threw that up there to give people something to do.
You know, it's a Tom Clancy novel, it's a John Grisham novel, it's any of the novels. It's a rich guy and an island and the president and the Lolita Express and the planes and everybody's it's
royalty.
Like royalty and celebrity. I mean, it just gives you a snapshot of a world that you know very little about. I think that's the great thing about the Epstein thing, is that it gives you a snapshot of this world that you don't really know that much about. You go, how in the hell does a guy that was been convicted of assaulting, sexually assaulting, molesting, whatever, a 14-year-old girl have these connections? How is he this powerful? How is he able to not go to jail? You know, a young, poor Black or Latino person who was smoking weed 20 blocks away 5 years ago, maybe a year ago, I don't even know when, you know, would have been sent to jail for longer than that guy did for assaulting and ruining someone's life. So you go, what the hell is going on? Why does he know presidents? And why does he know scientists? And what? And then you start, and that's the big rabbit hole. And the big rabbit hole is just the question why, right? It begins with why. There was a guy I had on my podcast, Russ Baker. He wrote a book about the Bush family of secrets. Very interesting about that family. But it's not only about them, but, you know, basically he goes, the whole question started with why. Why is this guy the president? And then he started digging into the family. And he goes, well, he's the president because his father was president. He goes, well, why was his father president? You go, well, because he was vice president. Well, why was he vice president? Well, then why? Because he was the ambassador to China. Well, why the hell was he ambassador to China? Because he ran the CIA. And that's when he stopped. He goes, why the hell did he run the CIA? And then he started digging and looking at everything. So I think a lot of this, it is just that big question is why? And then you have to set on your journey. And then you start to realize that a lot of what you've been told about the way things work is not true.
Yeah, I think I mean, you look at like take the example of Bush and W. So we all know, or the theory is, in the early 90s, I forget what year, he was a VP or an executive at this oil company, Harkin Oil. And, you know, Bush, the father, always said, make your first millions before you run for office. A decent piece of advice for politicians. And so Harkin Oil was going down the drain. W knew about it and allegedly illegally sold all his shares, like several $1 million worth. And that's how he made his first millions. Then somehow he bought the Texas Rangers with just a few million and made another 10, 20, whatever out of that. And now he's got the money to run for governor. Yeah. So one time I was going to this party at this investment bank, and the chairman and vice chairman of this small investment bank, they're all partying. They're sitting next to each other, they're laughing. The chairman was the guy, I think his name was Alan Quasha, who was the head of Harkin Oil, who was W.'s Bush, who let him sell those shares. So he's sitting next to Terry McAuliffe, who was Clinton's chief fundraiser. And this was a time when no Clinton was in office. So Terry McAuliffe wasn't governor of Virginia yet, and he was taking a break. But him and Alan Quasha, who are on total opposite ends of the political game, but in the financial game, they were actually working together. So it's just like everybody's
Right.
backslapping,
Yeah.
high-fiving, it's Christmas party. And that's the thing also I think people don't get is that what you see on the outside has absolutely 0% what's going on the inside. None of these
And
people hate each
if the
other.
ruling class took care of people, I think we none like I don't have a problem with that. I'm not a Marxist. I don't believe in that. I don't think that I believe hierarchies are there. I believe that there's going to have a society with classes. It's all going to happen. You just can't completely take all the money, all the spoils, and then rig the system in perpetuity for yourselves and your friends and neighbors. You have to have some concern for people below you. And I think the problem is that we've seen over the last 50 years, we've seen these wealth concentrations and with them political concentrations of power. And I mean, one of the reasons that Trump is in office is because what it was going to be Bush v. Clinton again. And we were like, what the hell? I mean, they were already arranging the election as these two families that since I've been alive, I was born in 85, since I've been alive, it's been a Bush or a Clinton pretty much in the White House other than Obama. So the idea that we were going to go right back to that, it was just no surer sign that the country was truly in practice an oligarchy. And that became so disturbing to people that they're like, we're going to throw a bomb at the system. And the bomb was Donald Trump. But yeah, behind closed doors, everybody likes each other. The Clintons, the Bushes, they all hang out. And the reality was that's I think where Trump came from. That's where the outsider comes from. This idea that like we want so then you put somebody in who is a vulgarian, who's grotesque, who doesn't follow society's rules, who says whatever he wants, who's vindictive and cruel, and all of these things that a lot of dictators are, a lot of leaders, authoritarian leaders are. They're petty, they're narcissistic, and you elect somebody like that because even with all of those negative qualities, they still now Trump financially is not an outsider. We know that, but he's still he appears to be an outsider, and he is an outsider in the sense that he's not part of polite society. He's not part of that tightly scripted, what we just talked about. Here's the way things are going to work, and here's the rationale we're giving you, and we're going to give it to you in this very carefully constructed way. You have a guy who's a bull in a china shop, and the china shop is why we needed the bull. Like, and that's what people don't realize. You might hate Trump, you might not like him, you might think he's great, but he's necessitated by the idea that we've just had the same group of people recycling the same ideas that really haven't worked, and all we've seen is an erosion of people's, not only their rights, but their money, their status in society, their station in society. And I mean, listen, I perform all over the country. It's not great out there. There's a lot of problems. You go to Ohio, you go to Rust Belt, you go to these places where, these people, as George Carlin said, a system that threw them overboard 30 years ago. There's not much to do. I mean, the factories are gone. The schools are underfunded. There's a massive opioid crisis. Like, people are upset. And I think there's rage. And the rage is directed at those, people that are backslapping and hanging out at the Christmas party.